G'day ladies and gents, Cubic Meter here. April Fools is coming up and I had an idea for a pretty fun contraption we can build. Like with most of the things that I show on my channel, we start with the basic idea of what we want in the end. My idea is that the player might be able to find somewhere in the world an inconspicuous looking portal saying portal trading. However, the instant that you put items inside of it, an arrow flies through the portal at hypersonic speeds and instantly kills the player. This would mean on the nether side would have something like an arrow frozen inside of the nether portal in a non-entity processing chunk. This is because in order for our arrow to actually go through the portal, it has to be entity processing, meaning either the player has to be nearby it, or we could initiate chunk loading of the nether side by simply throwing an item through. As you can see, the instant I throw the item through and entity process the nether side, our arrow comes through to the overworld. Let's see what happens when we give the arrow some velocity, then try the same thing again. I'm just going to go ahead, re-enable entity ticking, throw the item through. Where's the arrow? That is slightly irritating. It turns out that if we give the arrow speed and then have it inside of a portal while it's not entity processing, the instant it becomes entity processing, it will first fly out of the portal before going through the portal. This is a big problem because entity motion is processed on a per tick basis. So currently I have this arrow frozen traveling at 4 blocks per game tick. If I step by a single tick, the arrow will travel 4 blocks. If I step again, it travels another 4 blocks, and again, and again. If I place a portal in the path of this arrow, and tick once more, the arrow has gone completely past the portal within a single game tick. Therefore, it hasn't actually realized it's intersected this portal and therefore won't go through to the overworld. So, if we want to have our hypersonic arrow traveling at something like 200 blocks per game tick, if we can't get our arrow to go through the portal immediately before it starts moving, it's going to be impossible to catch it later on. Well, that sucks. We set out to make an instant death portal and it turns out we can't even send hypersonic arrows through portals. But hold your horses, because it turns out when Notch closes a door, he also opens up a window. Check this out. If I summon an arrow aligned perfectly to this trap door, and then summon a whole crap ton of TNT like so, as you can see, the arrow doesn't move at all, but the moment that I open this trap door, yeet, we can stick an arrow into a trap door and have it store kinetic energy from TNT. And then release that energy at any time. Oh my god. Well, so much for the portal thing. I guess we're gonna go ahead and do this now. So the way that I think that I want to do this is that we have some sort of system hidden underground which dispenses the TNT into some bubble columns. Then, when the TNT reaches the top, we can do the alignment, and then we can store the power inside of our arrow. And here is our TNT alignment system. All I need to do is trigger the back right now. TNT gets packed up in here, aligned, and then explodes. The wiring is very straightforward. We simply have the wall mechanic setting the signal to all of our dispensers at exactly the same time. And then a cooldown clock to hold off until we want to align all the TNT. A medium amethyst bud gives the TNT the perfect height to give the maximum acceleration to our arrow in the horizontal direction. So now we need a mechanism to align our arrow on top of this trapdoor. Oh my goodness, quite a while later and I've finally managed to fit an arrow liner underneath the floor. If I go ahead and trigger this, we'll have the arrow dispense right on top of the trapdoor in the perfect position. There we go. Now, if we go ahead and hit the arrow with the TNT, our arrow has now been accelerated, so if we look at the data, you can see it's now traveling at over 100 blocks per game tick. If I go into survival, stand in front of it and open the trapdoor. Oh, hello. It's gone up into the air. Alright, let's give this a second try. There we go. So there does seem to be a little bit of randomness still at play. Here I've just got a barrier to catch the arrow. When I open this trapdoor... Okay, that one flew straight. Trying again. That one has gotten a bit of elevation to it. Alright, taking a look at the data for the arrows, you can clearly see that everything is exactly the same. So we've got motion, it's the same. We've got position, the same between them. However, the only thing that differs is the rotation. Now in a previous video about an insane wither-based blast chamber where I had to use a TNT railgun to instantly kill the wither, I demonstrated how important it was to have a perfect arrow alignment for perfect accuracy. And it seems to me like that rotation is now coming into play with this particular setup. So what I've gone and done is increase the amount of time that the arrow spends getting straightened out by this system to make sure that its rotation is slightly more accurate. And just testing a few more times, yep, that's looking a lot more accurate. Now for the proper test, I'm in survival. All I need to do is trigger this and stand back because otherwise the TNT alone would just instantly kill me. There we go, we've got our arrow. Our TNT will now accelerate it. If I stand in front of it and open this trapdoor. Oh, would you look at that? The damage isn't actually enough to kill me instantly. Something that I've come to notice is that we might have an efficiency issue with our arrow launcher. If we take a look at its velocity before I open the trapdoor, we can see it's traveling at over 100 blocks per game tick. However, if I open the trapdoor and then step forward a tick, and then grab the motion of the arrow again, the velocity of the arrow has dropped dramatically to about 1/10 of the original velocity that we gave it. While this is still enough to instantly kill an unarmored player, it's certainly not enough to kill a fully armored player. Well, that was unexpected. That time it seems like we got a lot more energy into our arrow. So the efficiency is completely random. So here, I'm going to try with a whole bunch of perfectly aligned arrows and see if there is any variation between each one. So let's hit it with the TNT. Tick freeze, open the trapdoor, step one tick, step another tick. Oh my god, look at that random spread. That is insane. This gives me an idea. Maybe we can use the randomness of a dispenser to our advantage. Let's create a whole bunch of randomly aligned arrows like so, then hit them all with some TNT. And let them rip. I think we've discovered a viable weapon for Minecraft. A little while later, and this is what I've come up with. I've just nicked a massive TNT duping array. I believe this particular one was made by Mr. Scratchcat. It's just sometimes nice to take an existing solution and incorporate it into one of your own designs. If I hit this note block right here, it will dispense a whole volley of arrows, then accelerate them with the TNT. Now, if I release the arrows, we unleash an enormous volley of super speed arrows in all directions. This could be quite effective as an area denial weapon. So here we've got a bunch of creepers invading our base. If I launch the volley, oh my god! Zombie invasion? No problem. Although I feel like this could be slightly more effective. So just a slight variation, we've now got a dispenser which just fires directly into the trapdoor. If I trigger it, there we go, it fills up the trapdoor. Then our TNT comes down. And we can unleash the volley. There's all of our targets. Okay, we seem to be very limited by the amount of arrows that we have. I've just got an entire mob of creepers over there. Let's try firing this cannon a few times and see how quickly we can kill them off. Our first volley is ready. Let's let it rip. Looks like they got missed completely. It might be because our arrows are getting a little bit of elevation. They're flying over the top of them. Tweaking the height of the TNT a little by replacing the medium amethyst with a large amethyst means that our TNT is positioned slightly higher relative to our arrows, giving them a little bit of downwards velocity. So what this means is that now, instead of our arrows flying up and over the top, our arrows will now scatter into the ground. This might improve the effectiveness of our area denial quite a bit. If we try it out. Yeah, look at that. That is way more effective. So every one of those arrows would be instant death for an unarmored player. So just out of curiosity, could we actually kill at least a player fully armored in diamond armor? Let's untick freeze. Yes, you can. And just for good measure, a fully netherite armored player. That is instant death as well. Alright then, how about full protection netherite armor? Oh my god, it's still instant kill. And so keep in mind that if you drew a straight line from every one of these landing positions for these arrows and the place where they came from, any entity on that path will get hit by one of these arrows if they happen to intersect it. So I'd call this a pretty effective area denial weapon. The only downside that you can't keep the arrows on the trapdoor forever because eventually they'll despawn due to their despawn timer. But what you can do is you can see enemies approaching, prime the cannon, make sure you don't stand too close to it otherwise you get killed by the TNT. And then you can time the release of the arrows perfectly with your approaching enemies. And holy crap, this cannon is satisfying to use. Isn't it crazy that we can start with one idea, then end up with something similar but completely different? Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you next time.